and cybersecurity experts Brian Horning, Reginald Andre, and Randy Bryan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another week of the Cybersecurity Podcast, Security Squawk. I'm Brian Horning, one of your co-hosts, here with Reginald Andre and Randy Bryan. How are you gentlemen doing today?
What's up?
Doing well. Nice and sunny today. Very hot, about 96 degrees.
Wow, not too bad. I think we're 90 or something like that today, but not too bad.
We just got back from a vacation, Andre, and we were down at the beach. I think the high was like 88, but the humidity was 100%. I mean, and it felt twice as hot down there as it feels up here. Like it'll be 100 today, probably, maybe 105. Doesn't feel near as hot as it did down there by the beach at like 88, 90 degrees, man.
Yeah, it's getting hot out there across the country. Fortunately for us, we've had a lot of rain with our heat, so it hasn't been too unbearable. Unlike the cybersecurity landscape that we're going to talk about this week, which, we talked about it a little bit last week, but we know that 2023 is now the most active cybersecurity or cyber criminal activity is the highest it's ever been here in 2023. And we're going to go through some stats a little bit later in the show that back that up. We have some healthcare areas or healthcare sector businesses and organizations that have been dealing with a major issue that we're going to jump into. We're going to touch on a recent settlement from the Kronos ransomware attack that happened back in 2001. It is now almost 2.5 years later after the event, and they are still dealing with the outcome and ramifications of that event. And we're going to get into what they just went through in the last month here. There's a water treatment plant that was hit with a cyber attack. It's an interesting one. We're going to jump into that one. We also have Blackbyte ransomware. Microsoft did a little bit of a study on this group, and we thought there were some interesting points with this ransomware group that we wanted to bring to people's attention. So we're going to jump into that. And then we've had some breaches at a medical facility in Texas that we want to touch on, and something happened with an oil producing company called Suncor in Canada. And we didn't talk about their ransomware attack when it happened, but we wanted to bring up some lessons learned that this company is going through on the back end of that ransomware attack. One of them I think most people will find very interesting, so stay tuned for that. So let's just jump right into it. Remember, share the show and ask your questions in the comments, and we will try to answer them as we go through. Try to keep them related to what we're talking about. It helps us with the flow of the show. But drop any comments or questions you have in the comments. Remember to share us on social media and give us a review on your favorite podcasting platform if you happen to be listening to us right now. So first one on the docket, gentlemen, is HCA Healthcare and 11 million people affected. An unauthorized party stole a list of information used for email messages to patients and posted it on online form. HCA Healthcare stated it in its data breach notice. So HCA Healthcare confirmed a data breach that impacted approximately 11 million patients, resulting from data theft by an unauthorized party. HCA Healthcare is a leading healthcare organization comprised of 180 hospitals and 2,300 ambulatory sites of care in 20 states and the United Kingdom. According to the breach notice, an unauthorized party obtained a list of information pertaining to patients and made it available on an online form. So what do you guys think about this? Here we go again with data exfiltration, and now somebody's just making it available. Not good, huh?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to a couple of weeks ago. We had a podcast, and I think you were asking about would you pay the ransom? When do you pay the ransom? And here we have a situation where HCA basically ignored this group. And from there, they decided that they would now try to make money. Hey, we can't make money from the hospital group. We're now going to go ahead and put this up for sale. And they had takers.
Yeah, it sounds like they gave them until the 10th and they didn't reply. And so they went ahead and started offering it up for sale. The disturbing thing here to me is the data includes service date and location, and it also includes their next appointment date, which means it would be easy to craft a phishing email that said, hey, thanks for coming on, May 2nd. We've got you down for July 11. Please click here to sign in and prepay. Boom, they get credit card information. They get more personal information because everybody knows every time you go to the doctor, you have to refill out all 98 forms from beginning to end every single time, even though it's all in a computer. We haven't figured that out yet. But short story long, this is a very ripe opportunity for people to get phished and for money to get stolen. So,
yeah, 100%. And this is, obviously we've talked about, a lot of times on this show, we've talked about healthcare breaches, what the data means to cyber criminals. As you can see here, somebody, and what I want to point out here is the breadth and depth of the cyber criminal community, that this particular actor knows if I steal this data, I can monetize it by selling it to other people, which those people will take it to the level that Randy just mentioned, right? These guys who stole the data aren't going to do the phishing. These guys are going to sell it to guys who have a whole operation of phishing campaigns that they can basically, within a few clicks, create what Randy just described and go after these people once they have the email addresses in their database. So this is going to be sold for various purposes, phishing being one of them, identity fraud and theft being another. But really, at the end of the day, here we go with another, 11 million people with their information out there just waiting to be used in various ways. And these people are going to wake up one day and be blindsided that their information was used as part of some kind of scam or something like that. And that's the unfortunate part, is because the victims of this are going to be the people who had their information stolen through this group. And this is just the beginning, right, guys? The fallout of this has not started yet. This is just, hey, this information's out here. This is happening. And now all of these affected individuals are now going to come after this company, and this company is going to have to deal with this problem more than just releasing, a statement that says, hey, we've been breached. This is just the beginning. This is kind of like the invitation for the lawyers out there to come and, go build a coalition of the willing to do a class action lawsuit against this group.
Yeah, and one thing I like about, well, not like about the article, what the article mentioned is the next appointment date. Just imagine what type of phishing emails. Hey, your next appointment is in 3 months.
Yep.
Click here to, we've made things much easier. Click here so that you can prepay your copay. Enter your credit card number, things like that.
So, the biggest lesson learned for me out of this article comes right here. And this particular incident, it's pointed out that this incident exemplifies the importance of employing strict security controls wherever patient data is stored. Sometimes non-critical systems, such as email notification platforms, are not secured at the same level critical patient care platforms might be. But a lot of the data is the same sensitive data and should be treated as such. And I want to break this down for everybody so they understand like what this means, because a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives on what cybersecurity is, what certain functions of, like, say, email encryptions do and don't do. And I want to kind of break that down for everybody and talk about it with you guys, because it sounds like this was stolen out of a system, maybe an email system. Like somebody got access to somebody's Gmail or Outlook, and they were able to pour through that information and find this protected health information, which, whether you want to believe this or not, most healthcare organizations, your private health information just doesn't live in that health system that they use. They'll pull reports out. They'll send files to patients, even though they shouldn't be doing it, and everything should be uploaded to a portal that you can access. We know it still happens. Like, the three of us evaluate companies like this all the time, and we know that private health information is still being emailed. And a lot of people get a false sense of security when they click that lock in Outlook at the top and say, "Oh, encrypt this," and they think if they encrypt the email that they're kind of like safe harbor, that like they're not going to have a problem Monday. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. Like, an encrypted email just prevents somebody who doesn't actually have access to your email, or the person who's receiving the email. It just prevents it when it's in transmission. So when it goes from your Outlook to, a server's out on the internet, if you don't encrypt that, it's in plain text. So if somebody happens to breach a server that is a transport server for your email along the way, there's a copy of that, or there's header information in that they can read, that's going to be in plain text. As opposed to if you encrypt it and you send it, that encryption, it happens while it's in transit, but when it reaches its final destination, that email is no longer encrypted. But what I'm saying here is if I breach your email and get into your Outlook or your Gmail, I can see every single email, encrypted or not. And I think that's the problem here that most people don't understand. They think, "Oh, I encrypted the email." I had our insurance company. You guys know this insurance company. They're like, they wanted payment information from us. And I turned around and said, "I'm not giving you payment information, emailing it to you." They're like, "Oh, just encrypt the message." And I'm like, "And what happens if your email gets breached and my bank account information is sitting in your inbox or one of your email folders? I have no protection from that, right? And I'm sending that off." So if you think just clicking that lock and saying like, "Hey, this is an encrypted email that I'm sending," if you think that that's something that is protecting you, I'm here to tell you that it's really not. And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies with email encryption, is that a lot of people think that that's like the end all be all, like the email is now protected because I've encrypted it. And that couldn't be further from what's really going on. All that is doing is protecting it from somebody's eyes who shouldn't be seeing it as that email, transport. Like, here's, you may or may not know this, so I'm just going to spell it out for you. If I send an email to Randy, it doesn't go from me directly to Randy, right? It goes from my phone. Let's say I send it from my phone. It goes from my phone. It leaves my phone. It goes through various servers to get to Randy. Like, it could be 12 servers. It could be 15 servers. It could be 20 servers. That a copy of that email, it's called a hop. It goes from one place to another, and then it eventually will get to wherever Randy hosts his email, then Randy's phone, so he can see it. And that's how email travels through the internet. And along the way, it's not encrypted unless you encrypt it. That's what encryption helps you from. So you guys see it the same way? Disagree? Think I hit the nail on the head there?
No, you got it, man.
Yeah, I mean, it basically ties the email to your identity. And
Right.
if they get into your identity, they get into your email. So if, like you said, if they get into, let's say, goes to their Gmail and they're in there as you, then they get to see it. It's the same thing as if you encrypt a machine. So if somebody drives a truck through the office wall and steals the hard drives, they can't just pull data off there. But if they can boot that machine up and log in as you, like you have an easy password, that's going to unencrypt it, and then they'll be able to see everything. So did we lose Brian, or is that me that's lagging?
Nope, we're here. We're here.
I think I'm here. We're good.
I did have a couple comments I wanted to add on this particular incident if we're finished discussing the encryption part.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I just think it's kind of funny. Two comments. One, we're seeing this more and more. I went and looked at their press release from HCA, and they talk about the things that it's not. And they say, well, it's not your specific diseases. And then they say it's not your payment information. And then they said it's not sensitive information like your social security. Well, this falls under HIPAA protected information, health information, even though it's just your last appointments and your next appointment, that identifies you specifically. So it's still sensitive information, but we're seeing that more and more where these press releases will talk about, hey, well, they didn't get all this, and not really focusing on what they'd mentioned what they got, but then they kind of move on really, really fast. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, this information that was stolen was from an external location. What does that even mean? Does that mean that was on like MailChimp? You know what I mean? Like, was it on, like, who knows? But it was on some kind of external location to allow them to do emails. And that's a little bit on the disturbing side that private information like that's going out to a third party server, which was then breached.
Well,
so
external
those are my
location. I guess external location could mean Microsoft 365. I mean,
right. They say it in their press release that it was so they could send out formatted emails. So probably some kind of reminder software or something like that.
Right. That was being feeded through. Yeah. Which you got to really think about, right? You know, that's another thing that, you know, I think really good IT and cybersecurity companies bring awareness around for their clients versus, you know, ones that just kind of let their clients do whatever they want and they don't bring things to their attention, you know, and that's, you know, basically what you call shadow IT, right, Randy? Like, shadow IT is the practice of your employees just bringing in whatever they want to you, bringing whatever technology, cloud service they want to get the job done. And that could be what we're talking about here is an element of shadow IT going on where somebody set something up to integrate with Outlook, so it sent an email out a certain way or reminded them about something. And because they did this, a hacker was able to penetrate that and get all this information, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why, you know, when your employees question, you know, why can't we do this or why can't we do that? If those questions aren't happening in your business, I would highly question your cybersecurity, because those are common things that your employees should be saying if you have good cybersecurity. Like, why can't we just do this or why can't we just do that? Right? I mean, You can do it, but you can't do it just on your own. There's an approval process that you need to go through to get that approved to be used in the corporate network. And if you don't follow that process, then you don't get it, right? But most companies, a lot of companies don't have a process and they just let their employees kind of do these things and they end up in a world. And look, we had a handle on this before the cloud, and then the cloud came along and all these apps that you can now install through the browser, and it's the wild, wild west again.
Yeah, you know, I tell people all the time, basically before the cloud, you had your server in your closet. And all the cloud is, you took your server or multiple servers and moved it to someone else's closet. And you're right, before we had a handle on it because we had one place where we could watch it all. And now it's all over everywhere. You know, we've had companies, like somebody at the company is trying to install Dropbox, and it's not, you know, something that they officially use. And so they try to install Dropbox because they want to share files with customers or whatever. And then we have to come back and they're like, well, why was it blocked? Well, let's see. When you log in as Dropbox, sometimes it will take your documents and, your desktop and maybe your pictures and sync it up to a cloud somewhere, which makes it more vulnerable. And it's leaking out company data, which is what ultimately ends up happening with all this shadow IT. To add to your point, is company data that should be corralled ends up leaking out to different places. And like in this case here, they get breached. And now, HCA is probably going to get sued over this. There'll probably be several lawsuits because that appointment data, man, that makes for some easy phishing.
100%. Andre, anything?
Well, I'm actually a client of HCA, so I'll keep you guys updated if I get any letters in the mail.
No way, really?
Yeah, they have one here in Aventura.
Oh my gosh, crazy. All right, let us know. So this will be interesting to see what happens here, and we'll keep everyone updated as things unfold. But moving right along, we mentioned at the top of the show that we were going to touch on what happened over at Kronos. And if we remember, it was a pretty big deal. To refresh everybody's memory, Kronos is a major payroll provider, and they provide HR management solutions for very large companies. They were hit with ransomware, and I heard stories from I heard stories from companies where basically they were giving out cash in their lunchrooms because they couldn't run payroll and they had to pay their people. This affected a lot of companies, and now these companies are getting involved in a class action lawsuit. But again, I am not a fan of class action lawsuits. Like, I remember when I was invited to be part of one because my credit card kept getting compromised by a certain hoagie shop locally, and when I read through the details, it basically said you'll get $7.
Wow.
It cost me way more than $7. Trust me. And that's the crappy part. Yes, it's going to cost Kronos a lot of money, but if we really dig into the details here at the end, it's pretty astounding how much each victim has been awarded as a result of this agreement. Which that's why Kronos is looking at this, quite frankly, guys, this is a steal for them.
Right.
They get out of this for $6 million. You can always opt out of the class action lawsuit. But they had to pay $6 million to a settlement with healthcare organizations and other organizations across different industries impacted by a data breach that followed their ransomware attack in December of 2021. What was that?
Notice it's saying organizations. It's not even saying the individual.
Right.
So what is a company that's big enough to afford Kronos is going to do with $1,000 or $7,500?
Oh, you got the cat out of the bag. So yeah, as Andre's pointing out, aside from providing class members with either up to $1,000 or up to $7,500 in payments, UKG has also agreed to bolster its security measures with a more extensive scanning and monitoring program, as well as third-party security services. Well, that's vague. I'd like to see the details of that. Article just states in here, to compound the matter, the timing of the breach left workers worrying about these financial issues and data concerns in the midst of the holiday season, wondering if they would be able to make ends meet and how long the problem would continue. Those worries proved concrete as UKG took months to purportedly rectify its security problems, the lawsuit alleged. So they won, I guess. Thoughts on this, guys? I mean, I mean, 1,000 or 7,500, as Andre pointed out, just is not going to move the needle in terms of restitution for these businesses and the hours that they probably lost in their accounting and payroll departments trying to rectify all this and deal with pissed off employees who probably weren't getting paid, especially, as you mentioned, right before the holidays, when I'm sure bonus checks and things like that needed to be distributed. Crappy situation. What are your thoughts here?
Just a reminder, just have a backup to every single thing that you cannot, even if you can control it. So have a backup plan for your payroll. If they went down, what would be your backup plan?
Right. That's all you can really do. I mean, as a business. Go ahead, Randy.
Looks like he froze.
Oh, he's lagging.
Well, I didn't. I was just going to agree with what you said. We don't really know the details of the security program that came, but I think the point of all of this is it's sending a message to other businesses. Hey, it's super important to have stuff in place to try to limit the blast radius when an attack occurs. And it sounds like Kronos hardly had anything. And so now they're agreeing on top of the 6 million, which isn't that much for each individual. You know, it may be a lot for Kronos, I'm not sure. But to also
Probably
come
not.
back and say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this to keep our data more secure moving forward, you know, that's a huge message to other businesses.
It's not a lot for Kronos. They're getting off cheap. I mean, I think legitimately, if all these companies, you know, if they opted out of the class action lawsuit, they would probably get paid a significant amount of money. But it's like, you know, how much do you want to pay to recoup how much, right? So, you know, the lawyers are the ones who make the monies on these things. We know that. But at the end of the day, it's a $6 million
like
debt.
2/3 of it or something, right?
More than that, more than likely. But
and
you know,
Andre posted in the chat that they have one. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Andre posted in the chat they had 1.79 billion in revenue last year.
Yeah, so this is like they're winning. They're high-fiving each other on this one. Like that's just my opinion. Like for the amount of businesses that were impacted. You know, I was actually one of the ones saying that I'll be surprised if this company survives. And we know based on their SEC filings that they are losing clients because of this. I mean, would you stick with a company that got hit with ransomware? I mean, I would have a hard time with that. But yeah, I mean, this is just really why we brought this up. Just, you know, obviously it is news and it is $6 million and yada, yada. But we talk about the cost of data breaches all the time on this show and try to make people realize, and we've been warning you for years now, that these class action lawsuits will pile up and you will have to deal with them. Well, here we are 2.5 years later, and Kronos is dealing with, you know, the fallout of this class action lawsuit. Which, you know, yeah, they're going to agree. They're going to pay $6 million, but they also had to pay to defend this. They had to pay money to lawyers. That's not all being disclosed here. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this whole entire class action lawsuit cost them probably $15 to $20 million. You know, to pay lawyers and everything to get it down to this number. So, anything else you want to add before I move on? We good?
No, we're good.
Cool. All right. So next one up, water treatment plant. Interesting one here. Why we talked about, I think a couple of weeks ago, and when we went over the Verizon data breach report, we did mention kind of insider threats as being a percentage of what came out of that. And it wasn't a super low number, but it wasn't super high either, but it was the third most common way that businesses get attacked. And here we go with a former employee of Discovery Bay Water Treatment Facility in California was indicted by a federal grand jury for intentionally attempting to cause malfunction to the facility's safety and protection system. This guy was a full-time employee of a private Massachusetts company under contract with Discovery Bay to operate the town's water treatment facility. And he had an instrumentation and control tech role, which he fulfilled between July 2016 and December of 2020. And the indictment alleges that this person had installed a remote control software on his employer's system and also his personal computer, which enabled him to monitor instrumentation readings and control the electromechanical processes of the facility. And in 2021, he resigned from the employer, but used his personal computer remotely access the facility's network, deliberately attempting to cause harm. So, in a press release from the U.S. Department of Justice, basically the guy sent remote commands to the water treatment's computers to uninstall critical software tools responsible for monitoring water pressure, filtration, and chemical levels on the water. It's unclear why this person acted in a way that endangered the health and safety of 15,000 residents of Discovery Bay town that the water treatment plant served. The case underlines the risks associated with improper access management to critical infrastructure systems, especially in the case of public utilities with an impact on entire communities. The context of poor cybersecurity practices can lead to significant damage from disgruntled employees with extensive access privileges or hackers. So what do you guys think?
I mean, I can picture this right now. You have an employee at a job site. He's in charge of the water and chemical treatment. He's like, "Hey boss, on the weekends when you guys need help, instead of driving over, can I just remote in? I've seen this team viewer, log me in or whatever." And the boss says, "Yeah, go ahead, go for it." It's like there was no controls. I mean, how can you have a computer is so important for the water systems for this city, and anybody can install a software on the machine, and when that employee leaves, there's no procedure to like go back and uninstall the software or block access, disable accounts, and so forth. And this is a state contract, so like this is not just some small business. This is a real deal here.
So you hit the nail on the head.
And this.
There's our lagger.
Go ahead, Randy.
We gotta wait. Go ahead, Randy. We're gonna wait for you. You're like 5.
Yeah, it's pretty bad
behind us. Yeah, go ahead.
Holy moly! Yeah, I was just gonna say this ties back into what you were saying earlier, Brian, about shadow IT. It should have been pointed out when he was working there that he had remote control software on the computer. And, he might have been fined the day he was fired, but maybe 2 months later he got bitter and he's like, "Hey, I still got this software. I'm going to go back and do some damage." And it never should have been on there in the first place.
Never should have been on there in the first place. Improper offboarding, as Andre mentioned, of this whole thing, right? I think that's like one of the big things people miss is when they let somebody go, they kind of just leave the computer as is, and nobody goes through a process of evaluating like what's on there and should we remove it. As I mentioned earlier in the show, having a process in place for what you can and can't install, and having a process for allowing things like this, you should be aware that it exists on your network in the first place. And then, as Randy mentioned, like somebody may leave your organization in a great place, right? You're happy with them, they're happy with you, they moved on for a better situation or what have you. You're happy to have them, go or see their career flourish or what have you. Everybody's all happy in the situation. And let's say 6 months down the road, this guy's situation changed. He got fired from his job. He's got bills piling up. He's got things to pay. He could have sold off access to this system to a legit cyber criminal instead of him going on there and screwing around the way that he did. And it could have been a lot worse. And there's a lot of different things. And as Randy mentioned, people's circumstances change, and having that access and continually, the guy must have been going in and checking every so often. Oh, do I still have access? Do I still have access? And he knew that he did. So he got to a point where he was like, all right, I'm going to start doing stuff because I just feel like it now. It almost becomes an attitude, I think, of they didn't pick up on this, so it's now their fault. Like that's kind of what I think creeps in the minds of people that do shit like this.
Well, he's gonna have a couple of years to think about that part. But why was this computer? I mean, I know why it was on the internet, but at some point, someone's got to say, you know what? Maybe a computer this powerful to do damage shouldn't be on the internet. If we need to do software updates, we have a procedure where we get a flash drive or a CD or something. But
Yeah.
this computer shouldn't just have been willy-nilly been able to be on the internet 24/7.
100%. I mean, you hit the nail on that. There's no way. You at least have it segregated and highly monitored. Like if it is, like where's the traffic going, and if it does need, or you lock it down to only communicate to what it needs to communicate to out on the internet. If it doesn't need to communicate on the internet, as you said, take it off the internet. Figure out different ways to get it updated, things like that. All right, I'm going to move along because we only got 5 minutes right? So I know Randy's a little bit behind us and probably wants to say something. Randy, just wave when you want to talk. So, all right, so ransomware incidents up by nearly 50% in 2023. And this will probably be the last thing we wrap up with today. I just wanted to talk about this article because I haven't had any real hard data to look at in terms of what's been happening in 2023. I just know from, being friends with a lot of people in the cybersecurity community, doing this show, looking at all the statistics that we have available to us, that 2023 has been a hell of a year for cyber criminals, and definitely the most active that I've seen since I've been doing this for quite some time now, well over 5 years. Certain groups are now accessing networks to change or even destroy data and then demanding ransoms, the report says. And ransomware attacks surged nearly 50% in the first half of 2023 compared to the same period in 2022. And weren't we just talking at the end of 2022? Didn't I pull up a crap load of articles where people were like, hey, we're getting ahead of ransomware. Ransomware is going to be a thing of the past. And I was like, not so fast. This is what typically happens. It goes down and then it goes right back up. It's like freaking Bitcoin. So here we go. And that's the other thing too. A lot of times they wait for Bitcoin to increase before they hit companies with ransom. I mean, if you don't think that that's a thing, trust me, that's a thing. Why would I want to hit somebody with ransomware if I'm getting Bitcoin at 10K when I can get it at 20K, right? And make somebody pay a hell of a lot more. So this broker Hodin, which found that the first 5 months of this year have seen significant increase in attacks. Its research was published in its third annual coming of age report, revealed that threat actors' tactics were also shifting. In addition to double or triple extortion, certain groups are now accessing networks to change or even destroy data and then demanding ransoms to disclose what has been targeted. I don't remember when I said it last year, but I know I said exactly what they just pointed out as being the thing. Like ransomware was like they were just going to steal data and then destroy it and say, pay up. There have also been growing instances of physical threats made to companies' executives and their families or broader context to force victims into negotiations. Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that did happen, but I did not know.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Growing instances made to. I'm aware of one incident where I know that they were calling the CEO's wife and kids and contacting them on social media. And then it also says that a report disclosed from a number of insurance carriers in Q1 of 23 suggested that this had not been accompanied by a rise in claims. So claims are even, but ransomware attacks are up. What does that tell you guys?
A couple of things. Maybe less people are getting cybersecurity insurance. A lot of times it's the people that are thinking about cybersecurity that are also getting the insurance. Like that's something that we highly suggest, practically require for clients that work with us is that they also have that. And, you know, maybe a company out there that doesn't give a crap about cybersecurity, maybe they're not thinking about, you know, the insurance. Maybe that's why.
So I'm just going to call BS on this last 2 paragraphs here. This is insurance company fodder, I think. But this points to the success of risk controls in making companies more resilient and supporting more stable insurance market conditions this year, despite higher ransomware activity. Conditions are now relenting, and buyers that have the correct risk controls in place are being rewarded with more favorable pricing and terms. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
I'm not saying that.
I think what's really going on here, guys, quite frankly, is these ransomware guys are basically getting involved to the point where they're telling the ransomware or the person that they're talking to in that initial contact, do not contact your insurance company. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that's happening because they're basically making a calculated decision. What's it going to cost you out of pocket no matter what? Because you have a deductible, right? So if they can get that number, and then they can get a number, you know, basically around what they would have to pay in the deductible, and they're happy with that number, they'll be like, okay, look, you're like, because what's going to happen if the insurance company gets involved? This is going to cost these guys. If you're thinking about this from a business standpoint, these cyber criminals are going to have to dedicate more time and resources, specialized people that are good with negotiating with these people that the insurance company is going to bring in, and they just kind of know the market. They're dealing. These insurance companies send the same people in. They're dealing with the same people. They know the MO. They know what to do. They know what's going to happen if they bring these people in. And I think that that's what's really going on here. It's not that businesses are more resilient. That's not the case. We know they're not investing. We know that they're not doing the right stuff still. And I think this is another poor call, like I called 8 months ago at the end of 2022 when I said, this is we are not getting ahead of ransomware. Hold your horses. And I'm saying here, this isn't because people are more resilient. This is because cyber criminals are getting smarter. They don't want insurance companies involved, so they're working with these businesses directly to make sure that the insurance companies are never called.
Yep.
That's a good point.
And they can spin this however they want, but that's the reality of it. Incidents are up. Ransomware payments may have leveled off because you're not getting involved because they don't want you involved. And they want these companies to deal with this stuff on their own. Because think about it. You don't get an insurance company involved, there's a good chance that you're probably not going to do anything ever again to beef things up. And that you're probably a good victim to get hit again. So they know they're going to get you again. You get an insurance company involved, you know that insurance company is not going to write you another policy until you correct things that they find when they come in and help you with the ransomware.
Right.
Anything else you guys want to add? Sorry, I went off a little bit there, but that's the truth.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, man.
All
We
right.
didn't get you started much, so it's kind of good that we got you started.
I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, I know this business like the back of my hand now, and I know what's going on out there. And these cyber criminal groups don't want to deal with insurance companies. And even companies are going to have cyber insurance, and they're going to opt not to use it because they're going to be educated by these cyber criminals. Well, if you call your insurance company, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And they're going to make it seem like calling the insurance company is worse than dealing with them. That's the psychological game that they flip on people. They're not wrong.
No, it's a great tactic.
So, all right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We will see you guys in the next episode next week on time. Right, Randy?
Yeah.
And, have a good one. We'll talk to you next week, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Share the show. Share the show.